Here we are outside Nick Ashley's famous motorcycle clothing emporium in London's Notting Hill. We've come to interview John Deacon, Britain's most successful rider ever in the Dakar Rally. So this is what we came to see. This is the bike, and this is the man, John Deacon.
Hi.
Hi, John. Many congratulations on your successful ride in the Dakar.
Thank you very much.
Just tell us a bit about how you got into motorbikes in the first place. You were just a teenager riding on the road?
Yeah, my dad was always a keen motorcyclist, so I used to ride on the back of his bike, and occasionally he let me have a go on it when I was 14 or 15. Well, I've always been, you know, even from like the very first time I got on a dirt bike, I always sort of got on quite well with it, really.
So you had a natural kind of feeling for it?
Yeah, not really a natural thing, but I always really wanted to do well at it, you know. And it progressed from there, from never really being happy finishing 5th or 6th, you know, always wanted to be winning. It's my natural competitive instinct, you know. What
was your first big success then?
I suppose I was leading the Welsh 4-stroke championship, which we rode as friends, you know, me, Tony Dinham, Lee Amlin, and leading that until I broke my wrist, I think.
So when did you first think about doing desert rallies?
Well, I think since the age of the video came out, you know, I remember buying my first Dakar video. We didn't have things like Eurosport or Sky TV then, and watching it on there thinking, well, I could do that. You know, I think we all think the same, you know, that we look at the scenery and the pictures and are amazed by it. And especially it happens in January when nothing else is going on in the motorsport calendar, so that was, what, 10 years ago or something? Yeah, 10, 12 years ago or whatever.
But you didn't actually ride your first rally was the Tunisian, I think, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah, back in '95. But we all spend years looking at it thinking, yeah, I could do that. And then with KTM's involvement back in '95, they were producing a rally bike, and the company were going that way, so I wanted to be part of that. I just won the British Enduro Championship overall that year on a 4-stroke, so it was quite easy for me to slide off and do that and take a few of my sponsors with me, you know.
And that went well, didn't it?
Yeah, really well. I was the revelation of the Tunisian rally. I broke my chain and lost about 3.5 hours, which put me down to 13th, but I was very close to winning the day, and I got on very well with all the French journalists and made a lot of friends there. So, and I remember finishing that rally, and all the journalists were saying to me, "Oh, no, you'll be back to do another one." And at the time, I said, "No, that'll be it now. Hopefully, I've got it out of my system." You know, but
they were right, in fact, because a few months later, you had your first go at the Dakar.
That's right. You get back home and start scheming and wheeling and dealing and. Yeah, that was it. I mean, that is everyone's ultimate aim, is to go and do the Dakar, you know.
Right. But that ended in disappointment after, what, a week? Tell us about what happened.
Well, I started off being a bit, not really naive, but having this competitive instinct. Although I'm also a little bit sensible, I was sort of taking it easy a bit, but not, I got sort of involved with a race and wasn't quite happy when someone went by me, you know. I was always winding the throttle on further and further, and had a bit of a mishap. Just a small crash, really. It was nothing, just what I expected to jump back up from, and I dislocated my shoulder, and it was so painful trying to drive a rally bike full of fuel in soft sand with the shoulder out the socket, and
which, your right or left?
My right shoulder. So of course I couldn't let go of the throttle. Every time it hurt, I took my hand off, the bike would stop, you know. And I managed about 50 kilometres like that before I was in so much pain. And then the helicopter landed. I was sat beside the bike in the middle of the desert. Helicopter landed, a medical one, and the woman doctor advised me that I'd broken my shoulder. Not dislocated, but broken, so I knew then that I was out the race.
So, John, let's talk a bit about the bike. I know you learned quite a lot about what you need in your first year, even though it ended halfway through. Tell us a bit about what you've learned.
Well, the problem is everyone's thinking they're riding an enduro bike, you know, or a motocross bike, because the actual riding position, everything is exactly the same as your racing bike, your enduro bike. So when you're riding all day, your mind is focused, especially if you get a really good rhythm going. You think you're on your enduro bike course, all of a sudden you catch something wrong, and immediately you realise how heavy the bike is.
Let's talk about the weight, because it could be almost double the weight of an enduro bike.
It's probably, when it's full of fuel, it is. Well, there's nearly 50 litres of fuel in it.
So that's over 10 gallons.
That's right, which I think is a litre of fuel is around a kilogram. You know, so you're looking at 50 litres is
over 100 weight.
That's right.
It's like having a passenger, basically.
It is. It's like two of you riding it.
Yeah.
So the goal this year was to keep the centre of gravity as low as possible. With the exhaust system and all the fuel, and to stiffen the suspension up like really, really stiff. So you can get away with things that you wouldn't normally do with, soft suspension, because most people's idea of a rally bike is big fuel tanks on a standard bike, which is basically what the KTM was last year.
Right.
Was an EGS with a bigger fuel supply. So this year, I mean, for your average guy, it doesn't really matter so much, if you're going with the intention of finishing. But if you go with the intention of racing, then you do need a bike that's...
Did the softness of the suspension have some bearing on your accident at all?
Yeah, it did. I hit a big hole in the road and it just spat me off. But I saw the hole coming and just thought, oh, that's no problem. Wheelied into it, and the thing just bottomed and kicked me right over the bars, So it wasn't a... I was thinking enduro bike, right. Not...
So if you, in fact, had the suspension you had last year, you might have not had the accident?
Very, very, very possible, yeah. You can never say for sure, but I know that this year the bike was much, much better.
Right. And also, tell us about the other thing. So you've got a large tank here, and then you've got auxiliary tanks here as well. Side
fuel tanks here. What's quite unique with this one now is we've got 3 oil filters on the bike. We actually run 3 filters, so like this year's Dakar, I only changed the oil at the halfway stage. Actually gone like the 5,000 kilometres.
That's amazing, really. And there's some blokes changing the oil every night.
That's right, yeah. Because some of them only hold like 2 or 3 litres, and don't have a filter at all on it, So once the oil's dirty, it's dirty. Whereas this has got a proper an additional oil filter.
The lifeblood of the engine.
Yeah, of course it is.
And of course, people often imagine that Sahara Desert is boiling hot, but you and I know that in fact it's freezing cold at night, so you have a real extreme of temperature for the oil to
That's right. When it gets to about 3 or 4 in the morning, it gets real cold. It takes a while to cool down, and then it stays really, really cold until the sun comes up, until about an hour after the sun's up. Right. So those first few hours in the morning, when you're up at 5 o'clock, I suppose, which was the average time for getting up, was very, very cold. So your engine has to go from all temperatures, of being really cold in the mornings when obviously you need a thin oil, and then like late in the afternoon when the temperatures are up to nearly 40 degrees, you need an oil to cover as well as your riding kit. You need all these things to cover this really big heat difference.
Yeah. Of course, the other fluid you have to carry is water. And there's a tank down at the front there.
Yes, 5 litres is compulsory for everyone to carry, and you're allowed 3 litres on the bike, or 5 litres on the bike, and 2 litres on yourself. I mean, you can carry as much as you like, but it's compulsory. Yeah, it's compulsory for you to have 5 litres.
Let's talk a bit about physical preparation, because of course that's obviously you're fairly fit from all the riding you do. But did you do any special physical training in preparation?
Yes, I did. With my adventure tours, I've been spending a lot of time on the bike, November and December, out riding for 10, 12 hours a day, covering so I was very bike fit, and I just did quite a lot of push biking and a bit of gym work, but not too much, but just enough to keep yourself in fairly good condition, I mean, after if you survive the first week, you're in good shape anyhow. So you get fitter as the race goes on. It is that long. It's like it's a 3-week long race.
Great. Just tell us a bit more about the bike. Is the suspension as standard? I mean, or have you? I mean, what I mean is, did you beef it up as it came, or do you actually change the suspension?
I changed the suspension. I changed the forks and used extreme white power fork with mass.
So that doesn't come with the rally bike?
It does now, yes. It does now, because I've changed it from a 96 rally bike.
Right.
And
so it's
basically I've updated it to like a 97, but at the time I did that, I didn't know that the new rally bikes would come with this suspension on, you know.
So it's a case of great minds think alike, kind of thing.
That's right, yeah. When I wheeled my bike into Le Havre, into the Parc Fermé, and the factory KTMs were there as well. We were all using the same sort of stuff. So.
And your exhaust isn't standard either, is it?
No, it's. I've made this quite a bit lower. For sure, there's no water in the desert or anything, so you can run a low system like this. It keeps all the heat away from the engine. Also lets you get things like the oil filter, and that much easier. And it keeps the centre of gravity down. Right. Without this, all the fuel pipes are winding its way around the exhaust system. So it's quite a few guys like burn fuel pipes and oil pipes and things like that. So
more likely to burn your leg if you drop it as well, I suppose.
Yes, yeah.
And a nice sturdy bash plate here.
Yeah, solid.
Did you hit many? Was there much rocky going?
Yeah, the first 4 or 5 days were very, very stony. It's actually had quite a bit of a hard time, the bash plate. It's with the stiffer suspension, it's made it a bit better, but you're very wary of flattening it. So, to be honest, I never really raced, 100%. I was like in cruise mode after my disappointment from the following year. So
get to the finish.
Yeah, that's it. You have to. It's if you don't get to the finish, everyone's aim is to get to the finish, regardless of their position, and to go out, to crash out halfway through is just so disappointing for yourself and your sponsors, of course,
What happened when you flattened this tank then? When was that?
That was on one of the marathon days, and luckily I waited up until the truck turned up, which was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and that had the spare parts on, because normally most of the parts are flown around by plane. Right. The KTM parts, but they do have these 3 trucks entered in the race. So obviously the bikes go first in the morning, then the cars, then the trucks. Right. The trucks are the slowest of the lot, so you have to wait for them to turn up if there's any emergency parts you want. So.
And when you say a marathon, though, that means a day when there were no planes.
No plane mechanics. Yeah, no plane mechanics, because for the privateer we don't have any mechanics, but for the factory boys, they have mechanics flown around to each day, and there's a couple of days that they can't get to because the runways are too small, but they actually have to miss out on having a mechanic for the day. So,
because that's another big difference, of course, that people don't always appreciate. It's not just the fact the works boys have got best equipment and they're obviously top riders, but also when they finish the end of the day, they can chuck the bike at mechanics and go and have a rest. Whereas everyone else has got to get the tools out and start spannering on the bike.
Yeah, it's a really, really big difference. You don't really appreciate how different it is until you're there, having to come in at the end of a long day. I mean, one day we had 840 kilometres. I started in the...
That's over, 500 miles?
Yeah, started in the dark and finished in the dark. God. So it was a really long day. Then to come in, drive up to the airplane and try and find your box with all your belongings in under a pile of another 130 boxes. Then open the box and pull out all your spanners and tools and bits and pieces. Just to have someone to do that for you is a big booster.
So tell us a bit about the actual terrain you're riding on. People imagine the desert, they imagine sand, soft sand everywhere, but in fact there's lots of rocks and mud down in the south there where you were.
Yeah, there was a bit of soft mud, but it's a bit of a weird thing, you can have a day that's, say, 840 kilometres long, which was like the longest day, and I think right at the end of the day they had 2 kilometres of big dunes. Oh, right. Of course, all the photography and all the cameras, helicopters were at that last 2 kilometres, so like people were saying, oh, that must have been difficult, 840 kilometres of that, when really it was quite fast going all day. Right.
So John, when you were the last, I can imagine that 16 days altogether, but the last, after you've been going sort of 12, 13 days, I think it's 2 days to go, 1 day to go, you must have been a certain tension there. Were there any moments in the last sort of 2 or 3 days when you were worried, when you had scary moments, when you think, oh...
Well, a couple really. There was the 3 last days we were up at 3 in the morning. So we had long liaison sections before the specials started, and when you went to bed, you were a bit worried that you weren't going to wake up because there's no mother coming up or your wife coming up shaking you saying.
Did you have an alarm clock? Or
no, well, you wouldn't hear it anyhow because you got earplugs in and all sorts.
You weren't actually racing in the dark though. You had these long liaison sections.
Long liaisons, yeah. 2 really early mornings, which took it out of you a lot, you know, because it was quite a long day.
Even though it's nearly the end, so they didn't give it to you easy.
No, it got worse come the end. You know, everyone said, "Oh, it's getting easier, it's getting easier." But the last 2 or 3 days were killers. I wanted to win the last day, you know. I mean, I suppose most people are the same. For some people, it's, you know, the class position doesn't make any difference. And I just set off from the start, which is basically done for the TV, you know, I mean, it's only an 18-kilometre special, you know, and after racing some 9,000 kilometres, it's never going to make any difference to your position.
Overall. Yeah.
Overall, but you'd for sure you'd go in with a smile on your face if you won it, you know.
Yeah.
So I set off. Ian Graham actually set off before the flare had gone up because he said
a mass start, like the 2Ks.
That's
that
right.
Kind of thing.
He was parked next to me. He set off before the flare had gone off because he said that's going to be his moment of glory, and everyone else followed him down the beach. And I think I was in 3rd or 4th place, and then 5th. A couple of the big twins had gone by me down this flat-out blast along the seashore, and then we turned off into like a woods really, like a bit enduro-ish it was, very soft sand, and I passed Sotelo and then was in 3rd, and then Peter Hansel and Costera on their Yamaha twins were driving in the tracks side by side with a helicopter above them, 2 helicopters filming them down, and I went between the pair of them, which was I went between the pair of them and thought, well, this is it, all or nothing, and disappeared off in the distance, and I had something like 40 seconds on 2nd place guy. Then they said it was 18 kilometres, the final.
Special.
And I'd actually gone up to about 22, 23 kilometres. I was then getting a bit worried that I'd gone the wrong way, but was still following the course because there's no road book. They just say follow the course around the Pink Lake. And I followed the track around like a little bridge, and 3 riders that were behind me, like nearly a minute behind me, cut through the water, and which is the done thing. I would have done the same, you know.
Except you didn't know.
Except I didn't know. It's my first time ever there, and they'd all been and done it before. So I've just finished this one with a very respectable 17th.
Yeah, top 20.
Yeah,
that's higher than any British riders ever.
Yes, it is, but I mean, it would be nice to go back and have a top 5, top 10. You know, top 10 finish wouldn't really be a problem, but to go and race, there's so many other things involved. You know, you'd have to be part of a proper team. You know, with a team manager, mechanic. So, are you ever going to have a go then?
I'd love to. I'd love to do it. I've been reading about it and writing about it and talking about it for all these years. Just a small matter of raising the spondylix, you know. There's a small matter of 20 grand. Certainly, if I won the lottery, for sure.
Take me with you.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much for talking to us, John.
No problem.
It's been great, and well done, and hope to see you in the top 5 next year.
Yeah, hopefully, eh?
Great.
Thank you.